Alright, starting off first here with a 1964 Jefferson nickel that was struck onto an improperly annealed planchet. It is graded by NGC at a mint state 62, and this nickel ended up selling for around $40. So not really worth having something like this graded, because you're going to have to pay probably more to have it graded and authenticated than you would actually be able to resell it for. Now this coin here is pretty cool, and I'm surprised that it didn't sell for more. This coin only sold for around $55. It is broad struck with that obverse brockage there on this coin. It is graded by NGC at a mint state 64. Like I say, $55 for that nickel. Now something you want to look for on your Jefferson nickels from 1964 for the D mint mark. Here's an example of a double die reverse doubling taking place on the back of the coin. So you can look for that with your coin microscopes on the lettering on the reverse of the coin. We'll look at some other doubling in this video as well. Here's a 1964 D mint mark that sold for over $6,000. So why would a coin like this that doesn't have any types of mint errors or mistakes sell for over $6,000? Well, it's all in the condition. The coin is graded by PCGS at a mint state 66. So that will give the coin all of its value. If there's only, a handful of these graded at a mint state 66, and there's thousands of them at a mint state 65, the mint state 65 is not going to be valuable. The mint state 66 would be valuable because there's not many at that condition. So there's going to be a higher demand. Less people can get their hands on a coin like that. That's where the value comes in at. So $6 grand for that coin. Now here is a 1964 D mint mark that has a repunched mint mark. So your mint marks on these coins will be on the reverse of the coin there. This is what you want to look for with your coin microscopes. An example of the 1964 D repunched mint mark there. This coin does have a very nice grade as well. It's graded at a mint state 65 by PCGS. The coin grading scale goes up to 70. 70 is the best condition you can get. This is at a 65, meaning that it's in very good condition. This coin sold for $2,800, nearly a $3,000 coin there. Now here's a Jefferson nickel from 1964, the D mint mark that has been double struck, and this coin is graded by Annex at a mint state 64. Of course, something like this not fitting in a coin roll, very obvious type of mint error. You don't have to use a coin microscope or anything to see something like this, right? So this coin ended up selling for a little over $100. Next up is a broad strike and a double struck Jefferson nickel here from 1964. Now this coin ended up selling for $500. Very nice and cool mint error there, graded by Annex at a mint state 65. So we looked at doubling on the reverse of the coin. You also want to look for doubling on the obverse of the coin or the front of the Jefferson nickels from 1964 as well. So you can look for that on the lettering with your coin microscopes. Here's a 1964 D mint mark that has a die cap error. So the coin has been struck through a capped die. It is graded by Annex at a mint state 63. Some, die caps won't be as extreme as this. You can look for them on pennies and other coins as well. This nickel ended up selling for around $270. Now this next nickel here only sold for around $80. It's been broad struck, which we see around the rim of the coin, but it also has a double indent. So we'll see one indent, a large indent here on the bottom, and then you'll see a smaller indent there at the top going through the word trust there, almost through the S and the T of trust. Now this coin, like I say, only sold for around 80 bucks. Here's another mint error coin from 1964. This Jefferson nickel here has been struck off center with a reverse indent. Of course, something like this, again, not fitting in a coin roll, but since it's 1964, we have to throw it in this video. This coin sold for around $125. Now here's a 1964 that is a very high graded version of the coin. It's graded by PCGS at a mint state 67. This coin sold for $14,000 because of that high grade. So condition, grade, extremely important. Super risky when grading your 1964s to try to get a mint state 67 grade. It's going to be tough to do that. Be careful when you're grading coins. Do some studying before you waste money on coin grading. Alright, so 14 grand for that one because of the high grade. Alright, this next coin here has been broad struck with an obverse indent. Last coin had a reverse indent. This one has an obverse indent. This nickel ended up selling for around $90, graded at a mint state 64. Now here's another obverse indent taking up a large portion of the coin, 90% indent there. Very nice mint error coin. This nickel sold for a little over $130. $30. Next up is a 1964 Jefferson nickel that's been struck 30% off center. You know, off centers can sell for a variety of prices depending on, you know, which coin it is that's off center, the date, the mint mark, the mintage of the coin, you know, how off center is the coin, things like that will all come into play with off centers. So grade's always important as well. So 1964 off center sold for a little over $70. Here's a 1964 Jefferson nickel design that was struck onto a 1-cent blank planchet. So this coin ended up selling for a little over $150 because of that mint error. Now this is pretty cool. I've shown this in a previous video. It's a 1964 Jefferson nickel that was struck through a piece of cloth. So when the coin was being produced, the piece of cloth got in the way. They actually have this piece of cloth here to the right. In that little baggie there, it looks like. That is pretty awesome. That's why you see the cloth design texture on the Jefferson nickel obverse here. This coin sold for $860. Moving on to a 1964 Jefferson nickel that has been struck 4 times, and those strikes being off center. This coin sold for $1,200. So we looked at a Jefferson nickel design being struck on a penny and a dime planchet, 1 cent and 10 cent planchet. This Jefferson nickel design was actually struck onto a Philippine 10 centavo blank planchet. So it only weighs 2.06 grams, and this nickel sold for around $1,000. Here's a 1964 nickel that has been struck through a retained coil. Looks very normal here on the obverse, the front of the coin. Here on the reverse, you'll see that coil there embedded into the Jefferson nickel. This coin ended up selling for $550. Now here's a no-dated Jefferson nickel that was struck onto a 10-cent clad planchet. It's graded by PCGS at a mint state 62. This nickel sold for $235. And then here's another off-center. It is a no-dated Jefferson nickel struck 55% off-center onto a 90% silver 10-cent planchet, so keep that in mind. That's really interesting. So of course it has to be 1964 or prior that this nickel is struck onto, because they did not make silver dimes in 1965 and on. So 1964 and prior, this coin ended up selling for around $1,000 as well. Alright guys, don't forget to subscribe in the middle. Check out the videos to the left of me. And until tomorrow, I'll see you guys in the comment section below. This is Couch Collectibles, and this is where I disappear.